ever wonder what happened to America?
Because of what we did on this day, change has come to America.
Something's wrong, and we all know it. I'm Charlie Daniels, and I'm here to tell you about it.
The nation has been hijacked by international forces, bent on global governance.
When I was a boy, it was okay to be proud of the flag, heritage, mom, and apple pie. God was in school, morality had a future, and beef was for supper. Revelation, dawn of global government.
We're the solution, Americans. Ain't nothing more to it than that.
Starring Alex Jones, Charlie Daniels, and Special Ops General Jerry Boykin. Theatrical screenings on demand. DVDs now available. Want to shed some tears over the red, white, and blue? Revelation, the movie.info. Americans need to see this film. Revelation, the movie.info. Let's fix it.
Occupying Till He Comes at Southwest Prophecy Ministries. This is David Schnitker with today's Southwest Prophecy Ministries broadcast. Thanks for joining us. You have just heard a promo for a film that is taking America by storm. Everyone's talking about it. It is a real privilege to have Chuck and Anita Untersee back with us today as we continue discussing this new DVD release entitled Revelation, Dawn of Global Government. As you recall from last week, Chuck is the editor and just about everything else regarding this film, and Anita is the executive producer. They have labored for 5 years and traveled over 25,000 miles interviewing the most informed and committed patriots this nation has. And the result of that is this wonderful film, Revelation, Dawn of Global Government, an hour and 45 minutes. It's like drinking from a fire hose. It's truly a primer for those who've not been initiated into what is really going on in our world and in our country today. And for those who have some idea, it puts it all together in a way that motivates you to do something. There's so much in this DVD that we are going to be taking several programs to discuss it. We introduced the film last week. We're going to pick up from there. And at the end of the show, I will share with you how you can get this amazing film. Well, Chuck and Anita, welcome back to today's program.
Thank you. Hello, David. Anita and I both are thrilled at your focus on our project and know that it takes that kind of energy to help us get the word out.
Well, we're certainly glad to partner with you and want our folks to know that Chuck and Anita are Christian people that live deep in the heart of Texas, as they say, in Fredericksburg, Texas. And they have worked, as I mentioned, for 5 years producing this film. They mentioned on last week's broadcast that they traveled 25,000 miles in their RV, interviewing 38 just all-star patriots. We're going to talk about some of the people featured in this film. I've just never seen anything like it, where you have folks that love God, that love America, that love the truth, and they're all echoing the same message of warning to Americans. So we're going to just start with that question. Either Chuck or Anita, both of you can jump in. Who are some of the people who are featured in this film?
Well, some of the people are, the main stars, of course, would be Charlie Daniels, who speaks as a narrator across and reminds us of our country, what it was like to grow up in this country as Norman Rockwell, America. General Jerry Boykin, who talks about Marxism, socialism, and also the threat of Islam. We talk about the Black Robe Regiment, which includes Pastor Chuck Baldwin, Pastor Dan Fisher, and Pastor Butch Paul.
And Paul Blair.
Pardon?
Paul Blair is another Black Robe Regiment pastor.
And Paul Blair, yes.
Yeah, I'm personally acquainted with 3 of these gentlemen. Chuck Baldwin and I have been friends for some years, and Paul Blair pastors Fairview Baptist Church in Edmond, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City, and Dan Fisher is pastoring Trinity Baptist Church out in Yukon. And I know I know all three of these men, and they're godly pastors who love the Bible, love the Lord, and they love this country. So tell us some more about.
And they've also served in state government as well.
Yes,
or attempted to in Paul's case.
Well, yes, Dan Fisher is one of our state representatives here in the state of Oklahoma.
And Paul Blair also talks about the 10th Amendment or states' rights, which is another actually solution to some of our problems we have.
Absolutely.
We talk about Common Core. We talk about privacy with Catherine Albrecht. Gerald Celente talks about economic collapse. G. Edward Griffiths talks about the Federal Reserve. Kamal Salim and also General Boykin also speak about the Islamic threat and what some of the tenets of Islam are. We have a section on borders.
An interesting point about Kamal Salim that Anita just mentioned is he was literally a Muslim Brotherhood plant in this country as a sleeper cell, and he for jihad, and he had he became Christian, and he tells his story, but he tells also the idea of why he was put here, and that there are countless people like him who, of course, have not become Christian out there. And it's a pretty frightening scenario when you look at the open border agenda we have.
Yes, I've had the privilege of meeting Kamal Salim personally and have heard his testimony of how he came to faith in Jesus Christ and, of course, immediately changed sides, no longer representing the Muslim Brotherhood, but now committed to warning America about the dangers of radical Islamic terrorism in this country. Now, there's a little-known radio host down in Austin, Texas, I think, that's also in the film. Who'd like to talk about him?
Oh, how could I have forgotten the elephant in the room?
The tip of the spear.
That's right. That's right. What's this guy's name? Jones? Something Jones? What's his first name?
Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, Alex Jones is graciously did a phenomenal job on breaking down in a calm and cool, collected way in the film so many of the points that we were using to tell the story. He and Charlie Daniels and General Boykin sort of equally wove a thread to hold the whole story together through the whole thing. And Alex, of course, is I guess you would say, like Anita just mentioned, the elephant in the room. I mean, there's just about nothing he doesn't know about all these issues, and he really brings a lot of credibility to it. And amazingly, he has 28 million people a week that listen to him. But on the other hand, we go places all around the country and meet people who've never heard of him. So that just proves that there's plenty of room for the intel war, which is, of course, his site, Infowars.com.
Yes. Yeah, I've met people from other countries that know about Alex Jones and listen to his program via the internet. That's on Infowars.com. And, I mean, All-Star, these are all, every one of these people that you've mentioned that I have met personally have faith in Jesus Christ. That is the common denominator. Alex Jones knows Christ. He gives the gospel over the radio. Of course, General Boykin is an outspoken Christian who works for the Family Research Council, retired 3-star general. Of course, Kamal Salim, a believer. Charlie Daniels, who I was privileged to interview a few years ago, a glowing Christian testimony. And so this is truly a spiritual battle, and the people who are in the battlefield, for the most part, not necessarily all of them, but for the most part, are Christian people. They're born-again believers, and they understand the spiritual struggle that we're in. Well, let's focus on General Boykin, a 3-star general, founder of the Delta Force, was in the military for over 30 years. And in the film, he shares from his military training and explains 6 characteristics of what he calls Marxist insurgency. And he says these things are happening in America today. Let's take a few moments, if you would, to share what General Boykin shares in the film about these characteristics of Marxist insurgency that he sees operating in the United States today.
Well, let me say first that I'm always humbled to be around, and I'm a retired Army officer, but hardly with the reputation he has or experiences. And but just so that people might know what that means, he was one of the founding members of Delta Force. He was commander of all special forces. He was the commander in Mogadishu in the event that became known as the movie Black Hawk Down. He captured Noriega. He was hit with a 50 caliber round of grenade. I mean, he's amazing. And but generally, he breaks down not in a certain order, but the evolution of a Marxist insurgency, which essentially is right out of the playbook of the Communist Manifesto. One of the primary ones which you're seeing unfold today with this election is marginalizing the opposition. Or a heavy progressive income tax, graduated income tax, or centralization of credit in a national bank, which would be, of course, in our case, the Federal Reserve, and free education for all children, or state education. Those are some of the 4 or 5 things which he really addresses, and it's consistent throughout. And the Communist Manifesto, initiated initially from Karl Marx, has never really changed. I mean, and people think, oh, well, communism died with the Soviet Union, but that could be further from the truth. And the globalists use all the isms wound up into one thing, which summarizes essentially totalitarianism. But it's Marxism, communism, socialism, Nazism. It's really all fascism. It's all the same. It just means the big guys are ruling over the little guys in a horrible fashion, if you want to oversimplify it. But the march to global communism is really essentially the same thing as globalism, and the UN is the muscle arm of the globalists, and was basically founded by communists, and is definitely not user-friendly for this republic. So he really he's just an astounding person, and certainly has deep faith. And so we were just thrilled to that he would help us with this.
And again, these characteristics of a Marxist insurgency we just see so clearly today, collectively. I think of the first one you mentioned, the marginalization of your opposition. Didn't we recently hear one of the major party candidates, I won't mention her name, we can all guess, didn't she refer to millions of Americans as a basket of deplorables, as being irredeemable and un-American? Talk about marginalization.
Yeah, and then she turned around in one of the debates and said that she wants to represent all Americans.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, all Americans are not really interested in her representation.
Right. Absolutely.
or brand of representation, I should say.
Right. So she labeled us un-American and then said that she wanted to represent all Americans. So apparently, if you follow the logic, we are not Americans, and she will therefore not represent us. What her plans for us are is left unexpressed, but we, knowing the nature of what Marxists and communists do when they take power, we can fill in the blanks for ourselves. But yeah, there's a marginalization of the opposition. In other words, if you do not get with the program, we will have special plans for you. And I think, for example, of Dinesh D'Souza, wonderful Christian patriot who produced a movie, I think it was in 2012, I think called Obama's America. Well, the federal government found a way to convict him of something of inconsequence, and he ended up in a re-education camp for 8 months. So I guess that's what people who don't get with the program, have in store for them under a Marxist regime. And I agree with you. It doesn't really matter whether you call tyranny Marxism, socialism, communism, or fascism. It's all totalitarian collectivism. I even think of this individual's campaign slogan, "Stronger Together." There's this collectivist idea that we all belong to the state. We all belong to the...
That comes back to it takes a village to raise a child. That raised the hackles of a lot of Christians because we don't want a village raising our children. We want to raise our own children.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's obviously the scripture is very clear that it is the parental responsibility to bring the children up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. It's not the state's responsibility. So it's this collectivist assumption that we belong to the state, we don't build our own businesses, the government somehow does that, our children don't belong to ourselves, to our families, they belong to the state. It's collectivism, which is another word for tyranny. So we're going to...
It's so frightening, the critical nature of this current election, which essentially what we are witnessing here is either the birth or the death of America. And I told my son recently he was born in a free country and he will die in a police state if we can't turn this around. And, it is really that critical and that ultimate and that final that should the election go the wrong way, we will most definitely see the end of liberty, the end of free speech, the Second Amendment, a mass open border agenda, which will any nation that has no borders is not sovereign, and it truly is the end. And it's still astounding to me that so many conservatives still are arguing about petty things relevant to whatever they do or don't like about the candidate, and it's just a clear-cut and obvious lack of choice.
Right.
We have only one choice, and should we not prevail, then it's just going to be, it's truly going to be a frightening environment, and it will happen very quickly.
Right.
A year from now, you won't recognize this country if Trump doesn't win.
Absolutely. Yeah, this I just saw an article by Chuck Baldwin saying, will 2016 be the end of the coup? And he postulates that the coup began in '63 with the assassination of Kennedy. I think it began long before then, but in terms of the takeover of the presidency, that's when it began, with a brief respite under Reagan. But 2016, if Hillary is elected, will be the completion of the coup. And so the stakes are extremely, extremely high. And the issues that you share in this movie are the critical issues. Well, we're going to have to pick up next.
From a biblical perspective, it is so like in the days of Noah. People are going about their business, they're marrying, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they seem literally to have no eyes to see and ears to hear. I mean, it's all there, just a thin veil pulled aside, and it's all there, and yet so many people, even it's willful ignorance in many cases, and if they really knew what was at stake, which is one reason we wanted to do this film, hopefully to change hearts and minds, then they might not be quite so flip about it all.
Absolutely. Yeah, people are in what I call a Pokemon trance. They're just totally oblivious to the deluge that is about to come upon this country. And I think Noah is a good example in the Bible, and Jesus uses that as an example. That as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. In other words, judgment is coming. It's time to wake up, folks. And this film is like a 2x4 over the head, if I could say that nicely. It's not painful, but it does jar you. It really does. And
I think you mentioned this earlier, but it's funny because David Knight, who's one of the main presenters with Alex Jones, said it was after he came to the Houston and saw it in the theater, and said it was like drinking from a fire hose.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah, by the time it was over, it's like, I need to breathe. I feel like I'm being waterboarded here. It's just like
there probably should be a cartoon in the middle or something.
Yeah, some kind of an interlude or something. Time to catch your breath. But yeah, it is relentless. It is nonstop, and it's all good. It's all true. Sometimes we have to be hit over the head with the 2x4 or drink from a fire hose to re-energize, and that's what your film does. Well, we're over time, but we're going to come back next week, friends, so that we can continue this conversation. And Chuck and Anita have promised to be back with us. We've been talking today about this brand new DVD release. It's entitled Revelation: Dawn of Global Government. And in this amazing film, friends, you will learn about the issues that are taking America down the dark path toward globalism from some of the leading patriots and experts in this country. Now, you may obtain a copy of this DVD, which is nearly 2 hours in length, for a gift of $19.95 plus $5 for shipping and handling. Now, you may obtain this film in two ways. You may order it on the website, www.swpm.us. That's www.swpm, that's for Southwest Prophecy Ministries, swpm.us. Or you may order it through the mail at Southwest Prophecy Ministries, P.O. Box 58043, Oklahoma City, 73157. The address again is Box 58043, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73157. Please join us next week as we continue this discussion on the film Revelation: Dawn of Global Government. Until then, this is David Schnitker. Thanks for listening.